Rugged and durable military watches offer the best features for those who have to face the most extreme conditions. This is what we believe is the future of military equipment and technology. As noted by a prominent industry expert, future battlefields will include more robots, radios, sensors, and other technology. But the million-dollar question is, how can they be controlled? The current challenge in the market is that defense industries need equipment and HID systems that are more comfortable for different orientation preferences of soldiers, can be adapted to the soldiers and to the ever-changing technologies in the field, are digital, thus have more features and good functionality in terms of range of motion and easy movement. Good evening, everyone. We are the gurus, and to combat this challenge and answer all those questions, we present to you RMT 201. What if we told you that we could implement an HID solution that is customizable, so is more comfortable and safer according to each individual soldier, provides real-time data of soldiers resulting in higher performance intelligence, has a lower price than the industry median, and is highly scalable and upgradable for easy software integration? That sounds pretty promising, right? So to give you a quick snapshot of the key market players, it is essential to note that those are the top 5 tactical military watches in the market, and that all of them have a relatively very high price and possess lower technologies than what is needed for the combat field. All the features available in the market are mostly altimeters, digital compass, water resistance, etc., which are not enough for radio communication and other needed technologies. So what does RMT 201 have to offer? This is what we will present to you.
In order to achieve this, we've identified 3 main focus points. The first thing is that we acquire data and we turn this data into action using our Internet of Battlefield infrastructure, which forms a secure network connection. Secondly, the automatic identification of threats, which is done using our machine learning and data analytics, providing real-time feedback to those in charge. Thirdly, we aim to reduce the cognitive workload for the soldiers by introducing our wearable safety watch, thus maximizing interoperability while remaining flexible and reliable. So our goal is to achieve a low-level sensing and high-level decision, and this is done by means of 3 layers. Firstly, the data aggregation layer, which is the sensoring layer, is one that mainly realizes information resilience and is an extension of body sensor networks measuring things like the soldier's heart rate and vitals. Secondly, the data transmission layer operates by transmitting the data through Zigbee network to the squadron leader, which transports this to the control unit using the LoRaWAN. Finally, data in the control unit can be used, classified and clustered to obtain critical information on the soldier's biometrics, and then can be used in a wide range of classification, analysis, and prediction. Next, we introduce RT001 watch, and here's the design of our hardware components of our wearable device. We have a lithium-ion battery, sensors to measure the soldier's biometric, as well as an accelerometer. Also, we have a GPS, Zigbee, and LoRaWAN modules to provide a wireless transmission capabilities. It also includes a piezo vibration sensor and proximity sensors.
After looking at existing models of durable watches that are compliant with the United States military standard, the materials that we have decided to use for RMT 201 are rubber for the strap, because it is lightweight, flexible, withstands high pressure, it is water resistant, and it has a high abrasion resistance. And for the casing, we decided to choose stainless steel with physical vapor deposition coating because it withstands very high impact, it is corrosion resistant, it is abrasion resistant, and it withstands a wide range of temperature. And for the crystal, we chose a sapphire because it has high hardness, it withstands very high impact, it withstands very high pressure up to 10 atmospheres, and it withstands a wide range of temperature. Our design reduces cognitive workload for several reasons. Firstly, the use of RMT 201 reduces the distractions that might occur with the use of smartphones. This is because it includes features like activating noise reduction settings directly from the watch without having to use your phone. It also incorporates hand gestures to operate in life-threatening situations where the soldier needs to command the device without having to touch the screen. The soldier can customize gestures that signify calling someone specific, which are saved on the RMT 201. Then, in life-threatening situations, the soldier can pinch his hand to indicate the start and end of a gesture, which is sensed by a piezo vibration sensor. This allows the proximity sensors in the watch to turn on only once the pinch is detected in order to detect the gesture customized by a soldier to do a certain command. Every innovation comes with its associated technical challenges. We can go around mitigating them. First of all, security is mission critical. This is why revision military should work on addressing detections, adding detection systems, training personnel, and collecting data on adversaries that might occur in order to be able to detect and handle. Safety is another top priority. This is why RMT 201 has a night mode, where the screen is completely dark to avoid being seen by enemies. And this is when the hand gestures capability previously mentioned is extremely important. Connectivity is another risk, which we have mitigated by eliminating GSM and Bluetooth modules and replacing it with LoRaWAN technology. Finally, durability is another risk that we have addressed by choosing materials that comply with military standards. Moving on to our implementation plan, we begin with the research and development phase, where we aim to conduct further research on how to improve security, train machine learning models, test, and ensure compliance with military standards. The next phase is production, where we create a production line and roll out the products. Then we move on to training, where we train the soldiers on the usage of RMT 201. Next, we reach the final phase, which is upgrading and scaling. We will upgrade RMT 201 according to feedback from soldiers and according to new trends in the industry. Now we will move on to the market analysis.
So, where is the market going? As you can see, the total market size is more than 27.5 million defense personnel globally. Our serviceable available market, including our full staple customers of RMT, is just below 3 million, and our target market is around 73,000 defense personnel. But how did we segment that market? We segmented based on geographic, psychographic, and behavioral factors to identify regions with highest numbers of personnel, the needs of personnel that would match RMT 201, and also the behavior and tasks of the end users that would match the technology. So to start with the geographic segmentation, it is essential to note that the US military spending is more than most of the rest of the countries around the globe. And that is according to 2020. And also, their defense personnel in terms of numbers is so much higher than the other customers that RMT typically sells to. And that is why we decided to target the US defense industry, because they have a higher spending power. So that also results in a higher potential revenue growth because of the high number of defense personnel and because it will be highly scalable. In terms of the psychographic needs, it is essential to note that the personnel needs in terms of cutting-edge technology, niche equipment, and multiple communication channels are some of the most important factors that would match the technology provided by RMT 201. So those are the groups that we would be targeting. And in terms of behavioral segmentation, RMT 201 would be so much more effective in situations that involve intelligence operations, hostage rescue, combat missions, and JTAC because of the technologies that were just mentioned by my colleagues. And that is why we decided to target specialists and special forces operators in the US defense industry. So how will we be positioning RMT 201? According to, or in comparison to the other market players that were mentioned a while ago, RMT would be positioned where it has a high tech and a moderate cost compared to other key players in the market where they have a high cost and lower tech than what is needed in the military industry. So how will we be reaching our customers? Because of the lower constraints for marketing and strategy, etc., we decided to use real-time marketing to reach our customers, which is mainly to start with the US defense industry. So we will be focusing on two factors, pricing and uniqueness, because the price of RMT 201 is so much lower than others in the market. And also compared to that low price, the US military would be getting a much higher benefit. So there's a high cost benefit for that. And also in terms of uniqueness, the features of the HID system provided by RMT201 are so much better than other systems that could be developed or that are currently existing in the market, mainly because of reliability, software upgrade, integration, etc., and also comfort and safety. And also the technology that is used is so much, would give them an edge in terms of the soldiers operating in the combat field. And how will that be, what is the cost of that for RMT and how will it be priced is what we move on to now.
In order to assess the financial viability of our solution, we started with calculating the cost that will be needed for RMT to work. And those costs can be divided into initial investment and operating costs. First, our initial investment cost can be divided into facilities and data center upgrades. The great news is that Revision has recently made some investments that will help them lower their initial investment costs to produce RMT. They acquired Panacase in 2014 that specializes in lithium-ion battery design and power management systems, which are systems that will be used in the watch. And also they recently opened a new R&D and software development facility in Portsmouth in summer 2019, which should also serve as a data center. Second comes the operating costs. Those can be divided into production costs and R&D costs, which with the cost buckets shown above. After researching total production costs, we arrived at a cost of $180 per unit, which is remarkable for the industry. And then we allocated a constant R&D spending of 10% of the revenues along the 10-year model that we developed. Further cost breakdown is also available if needed. Then we used a model of 10 years since we believe that this technology would take 10 years to mature and to be replaced by any other newer technology. This gave us an MPV of $120 million and a market share by 2032 of 50%. And we specifically target the special forces and the specialist soldiers as explained earlier. This gave us an impressive 70% IRR and 30 times ROI, which should be clarified that Revision could have not achieved had it not been for their recent acquisitions and investments, since this significantly lowered the needed initial investment cost for this project. In our discount model, we used average historical models, and we used also historical GDP growth rates to grow our prices. So how do we assess this solution in terms of its strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? The number one strength is the fact that there is an actual need for a more comfortable design and also one that is digital, as per the feedback that Revision received from their customers. So this immediately gives a high growth potential for our product. Then there's another strength lying in the fact that Revision sells to 4 different armies in 4 different locations, which reduces the country-specific risk and again gives them more soldiers to sell to later on. The weaknesses lie in the fact that the acquisitions that were done recently have all been done back-to-back, which means that there are significant budget constraints, which will affect our marketing and will not enable them to sell to other armies anytime soon. Our opportunities lie in the fact that there are currently historical low interest costs all over the world, which means that this is the ideal time to actually embark on such an investment. And finally, the threats lie in the threats of testing and of low adoption when this solution rolls out.
So to wrap up, it is essential to note that RMT201 proves to be an upgrade from current HID systems needed for the military industry. What RMT is all about is comfort and safety as well, because it is customizable for soldiers. It also has the highest tech in the market currently for HID systems because it is innovative, reliable, the software can be easily integrated, and it provides real-time data collection. And finally, the price is lower than the industry median, which provides a high cost benefit and high potential revenue for RMT, as well as a unique point for selling to our customers, so that we are able to reach them easily. Thank you so much for listening, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
So if my understanding is correct, you guys are planning to target specifically specialists and special forces, yes? This is your focus, your target market. The case mentions that these are the groups that actually have among the highest budgets and can afford higher pricing. And what you were saying is that in your marketing strategy, you're going to emphasize the low cost. Yeah, in order to win these customers over in comparison to your competitors. Yeah, can you please elaborate on that? Why so? If these target groups are able and willing to pay for better quality, better features, why using that as your key point in your market strategy?
Well, we certainly agree with you that that price can actually, there is room to increase it later on. However, revision currently has a lot of budget constraints, which was mentioned in the case specifically that it will relate specifically to the marketing costs and so on. So we decided rather than emphasizing the technological aspect and spending a lot on marketing, which the company might not be able to do, to actually have the price as our selling point, especially in the first few years when this technology is still being rolled out. And then later on, there could be more like room for price increases.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask the next questions? I'd like to ask about the charging. Have you thought about how is it going to be charged? Is it running on battery? Is it going to be pre-charged? Have you thought about that?
Yes, we've actually mentioned it's going to use a lithium-ion battery, and we've made sure to have to have it being durable, because this is something that's very important. Yeah.
Perfect.
We've mentioned it in the slides.
And talking about durability, how would you say that your proposition is sustainable for the future, other than the battery, of course?
Yeah. So we've actually thought about maybe in the future, after this pilot phase, integrate the use of solar energy to power these wearable devices. But because of the harsh conditions that the soldiers might be subjected to, we were not sure if we could always have this option. So we prioritized reliability over this thing in particular. But maybe we could consider that in the future so that it it continues.
Good idea.
Working. Thank you.
I'd also like to add that the fact that we're now integrating the solution of a watch in addition to the HRD that was used by the soldiers earlier on means that in the manufacturing process along the whole supply chain, there will be fewer carbon emissions since you're actually producing less quantities by merging the two products together.
Can I ask the next? Oh, I was ready to ask the next question. Angela, do you?
Go ahead.
I just want to ask about the resource constraints. Like, we're constrained, right? This is assets or constraints. So we don't have like the resources to develop this. I know you're using one of the existing R&D centers, but it sounds like we don't have enough manpower. And also if we have to, depending what you are going to suggest, is also the compliance to the revision methodology, like ensuring that is occurring. How are you, what's your plan? Like, is there QC and stuff like that involved?
Regarding the constraints, that's actually right. It was mentioned in the case that they might need to get external talents to implement whatever solution we have. So we actually agree with that. We think that it would be the best decision for the company to outsource those talents or like get them elsewhere if to be hired on this project specifically early on, and then later on when this project becomes profitable and brings them more cash flows and the constraints are less, then we believe there could actually be room for it to be a permanent thing to work on because it has a very high potential. Like, a lot of research is already being done in this area, so it definitely is going to be of high potential later on.
Do your costs reflect that? Because you have a very strong NPV and a very strong profitability. So you know, when you have to hire resources, new resources, you have to train them, especially they have to comply to our methodologies and our whole certification and standards. Like there's a lot of QC and certification. I'm just concerned, like upfront, maybe it's not that profitable. It may be the price point that you're selling at, to the previous question, where the target audience has a, you know, bigger appetite to pay a higher price for a more durable solution. You know, did you debate that? Like, did you do like a sensitivity analysis? Like, if your costs are very high,
yeah,
compared to what you're estimating?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, we actually thought of that in the initial investment cost specifically. And also in the R&D cost later on. So starting with the initial investment cost, we have it at $4 million, if we can move to the appendices or something. We have it at $4 million, while actually the cost of outsourcing, when we did a quick estimation, it would have been lower, since it's usually a percentage of what's actually being produced. So if you're going to completely outsource the project or have it elsewhere, it's going to be cost less than $4 million for the initial investment. However, it was $2-something million, but then we increased it further to actually account for the fact that a lot of data, a lot of talent hiring would occur. So this can actually be like increase our initial investment costs. And then secondly, for the R&D costs, we had it at 10% of the revenues annually. And when we researched that as well, the average for the industry was below that. It stood at 8%. So we increased it by 2% to highlight the fact that later on, we will need to hire more engineers and we will need to invest more in R&D to keep this solution sustainable for 10 years and even longer.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question? Can we go to the slide with the hand gestures? If I understand correctly, we were, or the soldier is going to use these hand gestures to connect the information or send the command that he wants to the watch and send, for example, a text or signal something. Have you double-checked the hand gestures, or this is just a picture? Have you double-checked it with the hand gestures that they've already had? The soldiers, they already have like some signals that they have to memorize, they have to respect, and just to make sure that they don't get confused between these hand gestures and the ones that they already use in the field, for example.
The advantage of this solution is that it's customizable by the actual soldier. So you start by pinching to activate the piezo vibration sensor, which will activate the proximity sensor, and before that, the soldier can actually customize the gesture he wants, so that it doesn't interfere with any of the other like gestures you previously mentioned that they're trained about. So this is something that adds to their comfort, since they can customize it themselves. It's not like it's coming. You have to use this certain gesture for a certain action, but they just need to pinch before at the start, at the end, in order to activate the sensors.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a risk, for example, that it's going to get confused with the gestures they already have in place for firing a firearm or something similar like that. Do you have any research or information? Was it being used at some point? Have you come across any cases, any information on that?
Maybe this is something that we can look at after the training phase in our implementation. We mentioned that we want to take the measures in order to improve any weaknesses of our product. But adding again to this is that the reason that it's customizable makes it that it doesn't interfere with the actual things that they learn, since they can already choose what they want. So if they have a certain signal inside their own like team or troop to signal something, then they can change it according to what they choose. So I think this is something that's more comfortable for them. That's all.
Thank you.
I have a quick
Yeah,
question regarding.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead. I'll ask after.
Thanks. I have a quick question regarding the smartwatch reliability. As you may know, I don't know if you've been maybe some kind of like testimony about this, but cars are slowly switching towards touch panels where your heating, your air conditioning, your fan settings are heading towards a touch panel, right? And as you know, when you're driving and you want to adjust it at the same time, I find personally, and I think this is something that's shared among a lot of people as well, is that buttons usually are the most reliable things. Now, if we put this into a context of in the military, on the battlefield, we're talking about buttons that are responsive and that when you click, you kind of get a feedback so that when you click on those, you're pushing the right buttons. So on top of this, we're adding soldiers that are wearing tactical gloves, and then we're adding hand gestures. How can we ensure that the product that we're releasing ensures the reliability and, that these soldiers that are using it can trust it? Because when I'm driving, I prefer the buttons right on my, when I turn on my heat or something, that's how I know I'm clicking it. But with this switch towards the smartphone, these touch panels, I find that we're getting away from what we consider as things that just work, right? So I want to know, how are we tackling that issue?
Aisha, if you can move on to the risk and mitigation, we actually we know that the gestures might not be the most reliable right now, but we think that when they are in life-threatening situations and holding, for example, they can't move their hands in order to touch a button. This is something that, like when they're coming to someone's attacking them and they want to communicate with someone else, this is something especially that they don't have to look at the watch. It doesn't have to light up in front of them. They can just do a gesture and the sensor senses it. So this is primarily its main use. So normally they wouldn't primarily rely on hand gestures. They would rely on actually pressing the buttons, pressing the touch screen. But this is for life-threatening situations. Like, this is something, an add-on that we believe will be life-saving. Instead of opening the actual watch and it lights up, and that could cause the enemy to actually identify you. So that's how we thought about it. Only to be used in life-threatening situations.
Okay, thank you. And I think Angela had a question earlier. We didn't get a chance to go through.
Yeah, it's okay. I think Eva kind of covered it. You did make a statement at some point that you're looking at the current technology to be replaced in like a 10-year time. I just want to know, what did you base your assumption on? To me, 10 years to replace one piece of technology seems like really long time, even if it's upgradable. So I just want to know, where did that statement come from? What's it based on?
I think what you're referring to is when I mentioned the 10-year financial model. So we did it 10-year because we believe that this technology can actually stay for 10 years. So whenever we're doing a financial model, you do it because you think that this technology is going to stay for 5 years or 10 years, and then it will probably grow by a lower degree. So or a lower rate. So that's why we use the 10-year model. However, this doesn't mean that you're going to wait 10 years. So in the implementation, I think it's going to be pretty soon, like in a year or a couple of years, but it can stay up to then, even with minimal changes or anything.
Mm-hmm. But I think that was my question. What do you base your assumption when you think that this technology is going to be valid for the next 10 years?
Actually, we assess this based on the history of how this whole idea of smartwatch came to be a thing. So when we looked it up online, we saw that a decade ago, the research about smartwatches has been intensified and it's been increasing. And then about 2012 and 2013, we started seeing them more prevalent on the market and different options coming alive. And then later on, even with the Apple Watch introduction, the industry even grew further. So we believe that it might go on a similar trajectory, even if the rates are different or anything, because the customers are fewer. They're just like army personnel, but it's going to be on a similar trajectory. And there's also a potential of it being sold to sold commercially to individuals, since currently we see the Casio and we see the Garmin and we see all the other types of watches that we listed early on in the presentation as current solutions. we see them actually being sold also to individuals. So that's why we believe the trajectory can be kind of similar.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that, but we have to move on. Judges, please go to the deliberation room, and participant, I guess, in the waiting room.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
And we'll have a 5 minutes, and then we'll come back for the feedback.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start. We have a 10 minutes feedback, so you guys can start.
Okay, I'll go first. I just want to give like a general statement. First of all, thank you. It was so nice listening to you, and well organized. I like the way you kind of pass the baton from one to another. I know it's not easy when you're on camera, you're not in the same room, you can't give each other cues, so kudos to you for that. Lots of good points. Maybe sometimes some of you should have paced yourself because there's good information there, but sometimes the way you present, you don't want to gloss over it. You worked so hard to get it. So maybe pace yourself to make the audience really understand it and pay attention. So don't rush through it. You worked for it. You have to present it, you know, as such. I enjoyed the way your presentation flowed. It was it was logical. What most jumped at me in terms of negative now, I would have liked to see a little bit more research and more numbers behind the statements that you made, whether it was product design or different options available or pricing. So even if those statistics or the numbers would have been fictional, but I would have liked to see them on the slides as supporting your statements. So maybe think of how you can back up your statements going forward whenever you think about anything from technology to pricing to your design. So that was it for me. Good job, though.
If I may, we discussed a bit, and maybe I'll summarize what everyone discussed a bit. We discussed what we might have wanted to see more in the slides, especially on the problem solving, the definition of the problem. That would help us define what the problem is, and that way it's going to help us solve it. And we're a little skeptical on whether the design could work or could not work. Since it's a new design, it's going to rely on research and development, and also the sustainability point. We would have wanted to see a little more, since the case puts a lot of importance on it. But in general, good job. It's pretty good work based on 6 hours, I believe, you had to prepare. So good job.
Okay, I'm gonna go next. What I liked, guys, is that when you did your market segmentation, you actually considered markets outside the US, even though later on you narrowed down into what the case gave you about US, but it's good that you looked broader. That was very good. Also, it was great that you guys detailed the description of features of your product. That was well done as well. What would have been desirable is that you wouldn't just assume that watches is the solution. It would have been great to see you arriving at that conclusion that watches is your best option by evaluating several options, right? And comparing watches versus whatever, and maybe comparing what you're offering to the existing solution, what they have right now, and highlighting the advantages, yeah? That would have been very helpful. And also in terms of your market strategy, would have been great if you actually considered your target market, their ability to pay and to go in line with your pricing, and also what's valuable to them. They've got the money. What they care about is that reliability and features and so on. And another thing is what also came up in our discussion. I don't know if you ever tried to use your smartphone and touch screen in the cold, yeah, with gloves on. But soldiers may find themselves in these extreme circumstances. Yes, so in terms of hand gestures and touching and so on, we just would like to see how you consider. It could be extreme cold or extreme heat or whatever situations could be, and the device has to be reliable under many circumstances. So it would be great if you could address that in your design. Yeah, thank you.
I can go. First off, thank you very much, all of you, for your presentation and your hard work. I know that case competitions are tough and, you know, it's stressful, right? So definitely good job on that. Awesome. In terms of feedback, what I have for this is, first off, you guys speak very well, all of you. You did a very great presentation. And as the rest of the judges have said, the flow is very nice. The handoffs are great. And I think that you had a very nice story throughout the whole presentation. I know that it is a bit unconventional to start off with the recommendation in the front. So as in, like, you came up right away with the RMT, which is fine. It caught us a bit off guard, but I think it was original. So kudos for that. Or else, in terms of the product itself, as the other judges have said, I think even in the military, actually, what they're looking for, the target audience, right, are equipments that just work. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at Revision Military's catalog of equipments, you'll see that all of them use physical buttons, because physical buttons are things that you can click and press without having to look at the screen, right? And what I mean by this is, even if you think about, if you have an iPhone, there is an emergency mode for your iPhone that you can activate without having to look at the phone. You can push all the three buttons together. I think volume up, volume down, and power all together. And then if you hold it for 5 seconds, it will eventually activate the emergency mode. So this is very important when, you know, you don't want to look at your watch, or you can't look at your watch, or you're in a situation where you just want to press those buttons very easily, right? So in the iPhone's case, obviously, you're walking down the street, it's midnight, and you have your hand in your pocket, so you can hold those buttons to activate the emergency mode. So it kind of comes back to this type of logic, in the sense that we're looking for equipments that work, and we don't need necessarily the latest tech on it. We just want things that are reliable. And especially if you're trying to break through the smartwatch market, we're talking about Revision's military's first smartwatch, right? How could we ensure that the audience are going to want to buy these products if we haven't even released a first watch yet? And so came with the idea of either partnering with other smartwatch companies that are leaders in the industry that could help alleviate some of the reputational obstacles in our way to market the product. And also, in terms of testing, I think Eva talked a lot about the testing and the quality control. If you had named a few military industrial standards, or local regulations that you want to abide to, such as some ISO standards, right, for the product's reliability, those are things that we can sell to the customers to say that our product's reliable and you can count on us for even the toughest situations. And so that's why we felt that the solution was very well backed up on that sense, and that's why also that the general fall through for your solution is that reliability and the target audience that you were targeting for. So that's about it for my feedback. Regardless, awesome job for signing up for this case competition. I really love seeing students trying their best for these things, and it's really a priceless experience for you guys. So awesome job again.
Do I have time for 2-second comments? 1 minute? Okay.
Sorry about that, Eva.
It's okay. It's okay. I went last. That's fine. It's fine. So I spent a lot of time on the questions anyway. So I love the branding, the fact that you called yourself the gurus. I love that you branded the presentation and the team dynamics. I think that was really good. So I think there's a lot of positive. Back to what everybody said, I think we weren't, we needed to see more of the different options and how you got there to the smartwatch. And, in terms of the target audience, because the target audience clearly was willing to pay a lot more for something that was open architecture, reliable, proper QC standards, etc. So we're not like, I guess you need to show us more on that you had done all the QC parts, all the testing, with the target audience, etc., which would require a lot more cost, and meaning maybe your price point, like showing sensitivity analysis on the price point, depending on the risks, you could go a lot higher. So if you showed us that, at least we know that you have the reflexes, that you're thinking, oh, this could be a lot more expensive, depending once we open up that Pandora box. And maybe pricing, then, we have the flexibility on pricing because that target audience is willing to pay a lot more for an open architecture and a reliable and robust product. So, that kind of thing. And that would relate into the cost, because to me, product design is coupled with cost. So some sensitivity analysis would have helped, in convincing us. And that's about it. So I think great job. Kudos to you guys for doing this during the pandemic. I know it's tough, like online like this. I mean, even us, the discussions and everything, it's not as easy as doing it face to face.
Okay, everyone, so we're going to get started. So hello, everyone. We would like to thank you for listening to our presentation today. Our team name is the Explorers, and my name is Risa Repetto.
I'm Molly Feeney.
Olga Kotayenko.
Hello, Wang.
So we are now going to be getting into the background of the case. So let's talk about the background of human interface devices, also known as HID. These are used by the military and are worn on their vests or their chests. They are used to send radio transmissions to different servers while in battle and connect to both headsets and radios. They are also used to control military devices by the control operations on them. In the future, battlefields will include more advanced technology, such as robots, radios, and sensors. The current HID models need to be updated in order to control such advanced technology, and they also need to be able to send and receive data. We are now going to be getting into our mission and triple bottom line. We connected people, profit, and planet with this new design of the HID. This new design will protect the military and will be able to control technology used by the military during war. It will be adaptive and can be constantly upgraded and improved to sustain the sales of this product. This is future focused as it is durable equipment and can be used for a very long time. Now Molly will be talking about design criteria.
Thank you, Risa. Moving on to our design criteria, we wanted to create a product that was easy to use while still maintaining all the features someone would need. Keeping the HID true to its intended use, the device is built to withstand a multitude of conditions without losing any features. Moving on to the problems that are in the current HIDs, 3 stuck out to us. First, the lack of ability to transfer data was our top concern. Second, the buttons on the device were both small in size and number, something that we would need to change if we were to build a new product with an ergonomic design. Finally, the limited adaptability due to the many dongles was something that needed to change. In order to keep up with the changing world we live in, adaptive technologies was something that HID needed to adopt. Now Olga will take you through our solution.
Thank you, Molly. So for our solution, we want the design for the next human interface device to allow for transferring of data between devices through Bluetooth capabilities and use of Wi-Fi coverage. The most exciting feature is the butterfly touchscreen, which opens up and allows for control of external technology. Additionally, an external wheel and joystick have been included to allow for more control and compatibility with other emerging devices and machines. Diving into data sharing, we used Apple's AirDrop as inspiration for the technology, which has firewall set up in order to allow secure file transfers, in addition to encrypted files. Bluetooth will be used to exchange files wirelessly up to 400 meters in the field. Through Wi-Fi, the devices will be able to communicate with one another. An additional security measure implemented is an audio warning for when a host device moves out of range or when a foreign device comes within range. This technology is AES, or Advanced Encryption Standard compliant, based off a RIT
project, which is a university. The Bluetooth will be asynchronous connectionless to allow for bilateral file exchange. Next, Helen will talk about the design.
Thank you, Olga. Here's our SolidWorks sketch for the technology overview of our HIDs. We keep the cables on the sides in case of input or output needs. For easy access, we keep the joystick which can control robots, UAVs, and remote weapon stations. Here's the controller buttons for radios and sensors adjustment. The new design is that we upgrade the HIDs with a foldable screen, opening with magnetic buttons. Here's the SolidWorks sketch on the right side of the opening screen version. And there's a specific explanation of this new design on the next slide, please. The new design idea is called Butterfly Touchscreen. This could solve the problem with limited button controller and give multiple controlling options. Therefore, it's easier for soldiers to manage and be able to control more equipment at the battlefield. By applying the app called ENGCOMM Center, allow the users to use fully digital communication headset and optimize the best mission needs. Here are some basic setup and cost details. The Butterfly touchscreen allows us to apply the ENGCOMM Center mobile app, which is an Android-based app, and it allows the toggle radio set transmissions and select between different platform and mission environments. Also give us abilities to contact with customer service. The setup design for using on soldiers, clip design at the back of the HIDs or magnetic buckle with the fabric pocket on the uniform could be the designs to make sure it's stably attached to the uniform. The cost for the foldable screen is around $500 and the back panel for around $100, so $600 total each for minimum estimate cost. Next, I will pass to the solar panel solution for Olga. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Helen. So another aspect of the design is implementing solar panels as a passive energy source to reduce overall military energy consumption. This is a $30 implementation that can help reduce, like I said, overall energy consumption in the military, which could last up to 2 to 4 years, and it provides 3 watts of energy with bright sunlight. Additionally, we'll be using sustainable carbon fiber, which for the HID, which offers high stiffness and strength. It is lightweight and corrosion resistant. It has a low coefficient of thermal expansion, thermal and electrical conductivity. And then next, Risa will talk about the marketing plan.
Thank you so much, Olga. We will now be discussing the marketing plan. For advertising and marketing, we will be working directly with the United States Military Services first. We will sell directly to them, so we do not need other methods of advertising. We do have a lengthy list of competitive HID devices as listed in this section. However, this new model that we will design is more technologically advanced and easier for the military to use. The direct comparisons will be discussed on the following slide. An end result of our marketing plan is to see success within the US military. Hopefully, if it's successful, we can expand globally and sell it to other military services around the world. There is value in using this new model compared to designs of competitors because competitive designs do not have quick access to information from troops as they cannot send and receive data. This new design has quick access to information and is equipped for more complex situations. This is going to make it very versatile and compatible with both external and internal controls that are made on this device. All of this makes this device more advanced compared to the competitors that I mentioned on the past slide. Now Molly will be talking about target market segmentation.
Thank you, Risa. When looking into target markets, we saw 3 main categories: special force operators, specialists, and regular force operators. These categories exist throughout all 4 elements of the United States military, and although different, all are on the lookout for the same technology. Throughout these 3 categories, the demographic, interest, and needs remained consistent. Only their locations differed, although that did not pose any limitations to our marketing strategy. Next, I will discuss our implementation and timeline. When looking into a release schedule, the projected completion date for research and development was scheduled for the end of 2021. With that in place, the 3 categories of military personnel I just described would be on a scheduled release for getting their HIDs. Special Force operations would be supplied with the devices in 2022, given that they have the greatest need for such devices. Second would be the specialists and regular forces getting their devices in 2023. Lastly, at the end of the 4-year plan in 2024, international militaries would be open for purchase for these devices. As for a financial plan, the HIDs would retail at $1,200. The price was calculated by considering all the new technology that would be needed, as well as adding a 15% profit margin on top of the production price of $1,020. When looking into the projected revenues from 2022 through 2024, the estimated total comes out to be $73,638,900. This calculation was formed assuming that each person would receive a device at a $180 profit for revision. We believe that such a large profit over the initial 2 years of release warrants a success for the HID and revision. Thank you so much for listening. We will take any questions now.
All right. So judges, do you have any questions for them? We'll have a 10 minutes of question and answer.
Yeah.
Sorry, 15 minutes.
I have a question. In terms of your market segmentation, you mentioned that all the 3 market segments, they share similar characteristics. However, the case tells us that the difference they have is their ability to pay. Some of them have higher budgets and some of them are looking at more economical solutions. Have you had a chance to consider this in your pricing and the market strategy overall for your device?
Yes. So the reason why we have initially offered the Special Forces operators an opportunity to purchase their HIDs first is because that they have the largest budget. We figured that throughout the first 2 years of research and development and then the first year of production, by the time it comes out for regular force operators and specialists, we might be able to reduce the price enough for both of those segments to purchase them as well.
Okay, so your plan is to to drive your costs down over time, and therefore the delay in offering it to the regular forces will at that time your price point will change, will be lower, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. If there's nobody else asking a question, I could ask another question in terms of your design. So do I understand correctly that the touch screen is one option, but the user can also use buttons? This panel, the buttons that I see here, would they serve the same function as the touch screen?
Yes, I'll take this question over. So we did save the button and joysticks just in case for the easy access for like radio sensor adjustment. But since we have the butterfly opening screen, so when we open that, like we use the touching screen, there's a lot more options. We can use apps, just like for example, like Android app or iPad. So it's like more options for the soldiers to use, but we did save the buttons and joystick for the quick access.
Okay, excellent. And as a follow-up question, let's say something breaks with the touchscreen technology. Will the user still be able to use the buttons for whatever they need in the emergency situation?
Yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. So one component could be repaired later, but the device is still functioning, correct?
Yeah, exactly. As long as like the inner CPU or like the main core like still functioning, like the chip still functioning, and the other buttons and joystick could take over the problem. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you go to the solar battery slide?
Yes.
So Is this the only energy source?
No, so there is also going to be batteries in the HIB. This is just this is a passive source to supplement, like usually using like having batteries like running out of energy like while you're in field, or like if you're using higher like a higher energy requiring like activity, if you're like directing like UAVs, for example.
Got it.
And if I may, Olga, having the solar panel in addition to batteries would also cut down on waste and make our product more sustainable, because it will be able to recharge it with the solar panel rather than batteries as frequently.
Yes, thanks, Molly.
Yeah, if I could say one other thing as well, when we were considering what source of battery operation this would be running through, we did fully consider maybe just having it run completely on solar panels. However, we were kind of turned away from this idea just in case, say, there was a situation where maybe it ran out of battery and it wasn't a sunny day, it wasn't able to recharge. We were worried that that wouldn't be reliable. So that's why we wanted to include a solar panel in some form, but we didn't want it to be the full energy source, just because, as always, you never know what kind of environment it's going to be used in.
Right, it's a backup. And can you go to the your positioning slide, your marketing, value. I think you call it value.
Is this slide correct?
Yeah. Did you name your competitors on the previous slide? I'm wondering, what is your positioning statement against the competitors?
So if you go to the previous slide, Molly, those competitors, there was a PowerPoint that we were given that listed competitor devices. So kind of just other models of what we were kind of making changes to. So these were just ones that were listed down on that list. So we were looking at them and seeing how those were designed, and just seeing like what was not bad about them, but what changes we can make to make them better. So then on the next slide, if only we could have put all of those pictures in here for you to see. But basically, this shows the value of using our HID product compared to those, just because of the things that we mentioned earlier. So having both external and internal controls for different kinds of situations, as well as controlling different technological devices that may be used during warfare, whether that's, say, a drone or whether that's something else. We have, so we have the touch screen.
All of this, which none of the other products could achieve. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Or some of them?
Yeah, so the whole thing was that since ours has internal as well as external, we just have a little bit more ability to control specific technology, or maybe more advanced technology would be a better word, because of the software that we can use in an app with the touchscreen, as well as the external controls. So say it was kind of like a quick control you needed to make, the person can just, take their hand and use maybe a switch or the joystick to maybe move a drone or something like that, if they didn't have the time to fully take it out and control the touchscreen.
Right. Thank you.
I have a question. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Vin.
Yeah. Thank you, Eva.
No problem.
I was just wanted to work off the marketing plan slide. So slide 17, please. I want to know what your ethical guidelines are related to expanding globally and selling to other military services. As in, what are the factors that we're taking into consideration when we're selling to the US? And then are we going to be selling to the enemies of the US? Or how are we going about to managing this on an ethical basis?
So if we were to expand and sell globally, we wouldn't be selling to any direct enemy of the US, just because that would be not an ideal situation. We would stick to countries that the US has positive relations with.
And what if the nation that is asking us to sell them to is willing to pay more than the US? What do we do then?
I think we would still look at it from an ethical standpoint and make sure that the companies excuse me, countries that are buying the HIDs are buying them for the right reasons.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Good question. So I just want to say thank you for the presentation. So I'm going to say something positive. I really liked the triple bottom line slide. That was page 7 at the very beginning, the mission and the triple bottom line. Coming back to that one though, like one of the key things in the case fact was having an open architecture. So this is a long-term solution that we could just change components and keep the base. So I just want to know how you guys designed it to ensure that, and how you projected that. And I have a second question. I'll ask both, and I don't know who wants to answer. You mentioned that at one point it was Olga, the solar panel $30 per HID, and then Helen mentioned the cost is $600, and then all of a sudden the price went to $1,200 retail, which is a 15% profit margin. I'm just wondering what else was included to go to $1,200. So that was the other thing too on the costing. I just wanted to understand the buildup to go to a retail of $1,200.
Well, we did arrive at this price taking into account not only the touchscreen and the solar panels, but also some of the more internal components, such as the Bluetooth capabilities, Wi-Fi capabilities, the joystick, the buttons, and again, we wanted to be able to create an ethical workplace, so we would be paying factory workers as well as like producing a warehouse to create these products in. And as I answered in one of the first questions, as we do move through our 4-year plan, we would be trying to bring the price down once we kind of work out the kinks of how we're going to be creating this product.
Yes, because it's a higher price point than any of the other options listed in the case facts, right? Like you're significantly higher. The highest was like 900.
We hope that U.S. military would see that this is a great product and they would want to pay a high price for it, with the opportunity for it to come down to a more reasonable price that would be easier to widely distribute.
Have you taken into consideration the capacity constraints? Like we have resource constraints, right? We don't have people to actually build this stuff. So is that in your production costs?
We had not considered that, but it would be something that we would look into in the future when we would be rolling this out for production.
Okay. And the open architecture part, how is that being like, how was that built into the design?
Yes, so if we go back to slide 4, I believe, so this was like for the triple bottom line, in order to be sustainable and I guess be able to adapt for the future, and all these future devices that we would hope would be compatible with our device, one of the things was, so we kept the dongle, and it because that from the original device is very much versatile and like can be interchanged between different devices. We were hoping with the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi capabilities, at this point, any future like technological developments would be compatible and can be used through our device. Yes.
Okay. I'd like to add a few more, like also since our we showed our like sketch design, so there's also a bunch of tests we could test our design, like a sand and dust test or a chemical corrosion test. As long as we the equipment passed those tests, and we could connect with company and come to manufacturing. Thank you.
Is that, Helen, included in your cost?
Not, I mean, like the cost for the like certain design is basically just for like the design, like machine parts. But we were about to do research on like how to come to manufacturing, what that costs, and I believe that's definitely something we're gonna do research on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? Just in considering the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth transmission, what would you think of the limitations or the risks associated with using this, this type of transmission?
Yes, I can answer this. So for limitations, so with Bluetooth, because our product is very durable, and most military grade machines and devices that we are using, or that the military uses, are quite durable. We would hope that there's no hardware issues that would prevent Bluetooth connectivity, because like with shock and all that, there's environment that can affect that, and we would hope to mitigate any Bluetooth connectivity issues. With Wi-Fi, it really would depend on each base's own like strength of Wi-Fi. There is a limitation that because the Bluetooth can only reach up to 400 meters, anything beyond that, like there's like a long-term or long distance project there, we would have to be in like relatively close range of 400 meters. And it was really important for us to make sure that security was not an issue. Obviously, as technology evolves, we would hope to continue to be up to date with this, but we would hope that also the devices, you have to be able to be on the same Wi-Fi connection as well as same Bluetooth, so it is that much harder to potentially hack into. Thank you.
Maybe I'll start. Very good presentation. Good job. I'd like to say that your design is very flexible. It looks very promising as well from an engineering point of view. From the marketing point of view, I found that it could have, like you guys could have worked on it a little better. Included production costs, quality tests, and stuff like that. But from an engineering point of view, it's a very promising design, and the presentation is very well organized, very well presented. So thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. I really like, guys, that you approach this case from a practical point of view. You mentioned that your product needs to withstand all kinds of conditions, which is important in the military circumstances. That was very good. What you did well, you clearly identified the problem in the beginning. That was a big plus. And also what was good is that you highlighted the flaws of the existing device, yes, before offering a solution. That was very well done. Again, I'm going to repeat what my colleague said, that the design showed flexibility, so therefore reliability for military, which is great. You guys also did very well handling question and answer period. It showed depth in your understanding, that you thought through certain things before offering a solution. That was well done. Where I would suggest to improve is the market strategy in terms of product, because you kind of took all three segments and you generalized, right? And yes, I understand your explanation about pricing. By delaying delivery to the regular forces, it will drive the price down. But what about the product features and needs? Because the case also explains that not only regular forces have lower budget than special forces, they also have more basic needs for their products. So designing one product for all three segments might not be the best approach, because the costs depend on it and all those things. So I would have liked you to see targeting each segment more precisely with price and product features, right? Other than that, I think it was well done, and you guys you delivered a good solution. Thank you.
I can go next if that's okay. So I really enjoyed the presentation. I really love the triple bottom line that you put at the beginning. I think that's really important, and the whole sustainability and, ensuring that we also have not only a solid design, but we also have an environmentally and sustainable design. I found the cost, I asked questions on the cost. I found there were some things lacking. So you guys said, like, in terms of the capacity constraints, that wasn't really considered, or the whole implementation. So like, you know, in terms of detailing that and just even having an idea of what the impact is on my overall costs, you know, and I know we want to have a 15% profit margin, which is good, but you know, the 1,020, I just didn't get that everything was included in there, the possibilities. And back to, you know, targeting to the different customers, maybe some features didn't have to be there. So it could have gone lower and we could have included some of the capacity constraints and stuff like that. So a different price for the different target audience with the different features, but also including all the possible cost activities. And that's it. So that's, you know, thank you.
I'll go. First of all, thank you. I thought as a group, you guys worked really well together. All of you are very well-spoken, good presentation skills, and answering the questions, you did very well-rounded answers, and you had all sorts of questions. I think my observations are similar to what was already said. I think on the cost, I would have liked to see a breakdown. I know you answered some of the question, but having them actually on the slide so as to not trigger the question would have been so much better. You kind of had the answer, it should have been presented. And in terms of marketing, I love that you went direct and you didn't go for any you know, gimmicks that wouldn't have made sense, and you knew your markets. I just would have liked for you to look a little bit deeper into competition and position yourselves a little bit better in terms of everything, features, pricing. So really just make kind of like a one-pager where we are compared to everyone else, because that I think would tell a better story. You had a good story. And a great product. I love the design. It's just the way you position it, you really have to stand out there. So anyways, great job. I really enjoyed it.
Very good presentation. I'm essentially going to echo a lot of all the other judges, what they said. I thought it was a solid presentation, and I think the setup was very good. And what I mean by setup is the analysis was very solid, and therefore that allowed you to back up the reasons why you decided to go with certain features for the product. But of course, unfortunately, a strong analysis will not necessarily win you a competition, but it will definitely lose you one. So you definitely got there. As the other judges have said, pricing, marketing strategy, those things are for sure to work on. But I still think that, as other coaches said as well, judges, sorry, as the other judges said, your Q&A period was very good. You've answered them clearly, and I think it kind of helped us clarify your solution more than confuse us. So that's good. I also like your answer regarding the ethical question that I asked, and I think Molly was the one who answered, I think. So good job on that. It's a pretty touchy topic, and what you say next is kind of just gonna decide, your team's fate in some way, right? Like, are we gonna sell the product to our enemies or not whatsoever? So good job on that. And I think that's it. I think, there was one thing Eva didn't get to touch upon too much that I'll expand on here is the open architecture requirement that was mentioned in the case. And what they mean by open architecture is being able to add on modules or making the device future-proof, right? So my last question I was going to ask you was about the 3 key considerations you had regarding the problem. And I think the last one was the technological advancement being open to future-proofing. And so what we wanted to emphasize on regarding the open architecture is having a modular part to the device where you can add on components such as, maybe a new technology of Wi-Fi comes out. So you're going to add it on there so you can plug it in, and allowing this device to be kind of like the core of your future products afterwards, and everything else are going to be expansion parts, right? Whether that's going to be, a new radio technology, a new connector to connect to your new solar panel that's going to be powering it with more, kilowatts or whatsoever. But allowing this future modularity also allows you to hit that sustainability constraint that we're asking. So reducing the waste of these devices that we throw out. I think that's it. Very good job on I like the solar panel as well that you threw in on, and the whole story behind how you wanted the solar panel somewhere, but you just couldn't find out where. So you just said, let's just slap it on here on the back and we'll make it out of carbon fiber so that it's solid. So I thought it was pretty original. So awesome.
Thank you
Any
so
other
much.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate the feedback. It's very helpful.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
Good luck and everything.
Good luck. Yes.
Yes, good luck. And kudos to you guys doing this during the pandemic.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us here today. My name is James Pham, and I'm here with my colleagues from the Globe International, Emma, Victor, and Efan. And we're so excited to be here today to present to Revision an opportunity to upgrade your human interface device to adapt to the emerging military technology and take the communication channel to the next level. When talking about the challenge, I will pass on to my colleagues, Victor.
And so the first challenge we identified is the current design of the HID device, of the control buttons of the HID device. And how do we plan to improve on this? We plan to incorporate a multi-purpose control button device design into the next design. And so the next challenge we identified is the increasing use of robots and other technology on the battlefield. And so our design must support human to machine interaction. And finally, the last constraint we identified is the capacity constraint both on the human and the financial aspect of things. And so what do we plan to do? We plan to leverage partnerships with governments and also private companies. And so we carried out a market analysis and we discovered our target market will be special forces operators and the specialists of the US military division. And so why did we choose this target market? The first one is the fact that they have a medium to high flexibility in their budget. As such, they can accommodate the cost of the development of this project. Additionally, they also require specialized niche equipment, which is what we'll be providing. We also did a product analysis to identify what are the current gaps and needs of the current products. And so the first one, the current product is compatible with radios, it's easy to use, and it's also upgradable. And so the new product, our new product design should meet and also surpass these criteria. And so not just compatible with radios, it must also be compatible with other forms of technology. And so I'll be passing off to James to identify the gap in this demand, the current product.
Thank you, Victor. I just want to remind Revision that you have done so well in human-to-human communication. However, as the battlefields evolve, your communication also have to involve with it too. And that means it's time to improve and upgrade your communication, the HID device, to also incorporate the gap that between human and machine communication. That is why we recommend you to upgrade the HID control button to accommodate with the new interaction, and that is human to machine. To give you an overview of our recommendation, our proposal here are the upgradable part that we're going to want to focus on. The first one we're going to talk on the left-hand side is interchangeable thumbstick. Right now, the conventional HID has push to talk, and I think there's an opportunity here to upgrade that. You have already done with the interchangeable dongles. However, now it's time to move on to the next level, which is the interchangeable thumbsticks. And our recommendation, of course, will satisfy all three key criteria that your design method philosophies have to meet. The first one, it has to be safe. The new HID generation have to withstand the military grade impact that our guys on the field must going through. The second criteria, it has to be intuitive, and so that the learning curve will not be steep and everyone can understand without much instruction. The last key criteria here is it has to be upgradable. And we don't want the previous generation of the HID to be going obsolete. We want them to also be a part of our plan too. And now I pass on to my colleague Emma to talk more about implementation breakdown.
So we were able to identify that there are three main things we need to do to implementation. First of all, the HID controls button development gonna spend in both 10 years in our plant. And then from the second year, we're gonna market and scale it to the military sector.
And then in the last 5 years, we're gonna scale it to the non-military sector. So now, Jem already talked to you that we want to do a swappable or interchangeable squid button pack, but how are we gonna do it? By using the magnet technology, swap, and then you just snap in like that. The reason we're doing that is because we want to make your technology and your device to be upgradable so that none device gonna be get obsolescence after time and after the change so fast of the technology. More detail into our interchangeable thumbstick. So on the first picture you saw on the top, that's what the thumbstick that will allow 360-degree movement control. The reason we're doing this is that right now the UAV drones and the EOR, which is explosive ordnance removal robots, they get into the battlefield more and more, but there's no way that the soldier can control them directly from their hand or from their body. That's why this 360-degree movement will allow them to do so. However, we do consider the safety in the battlefields. That's why we also implement the direction safe lock, which is when you click on it, it's only gonna allow you to move into left, right, up, and down, which is for you to change the channel from 1 to channel 4. But whenever you do it again, it's gonna open the lock and allow you to move 360 degrees. We also take into consider that what if a soldier by mistake just swipe that one? That's why we also implement the safety case. It works like the pen. Whenever you push one time on it, it disappears and no mistake can be made. You push on it again, now it's appear and you can do whatever you want with it. So this is a production timeline development that we're able to identify. The first 3 years, we're gonna spending on researching the technology. From the second year to 5th year, we're gonna do testing and evolving. And from the last 5 years, we're gonna do producing and modifying the previous generation. Back to James.
Thank you, Rama. And the question is, how are we going to market this new HID device to the market? First, I want to prepare a proposal for you to focus on the U.S. Special Forces. And like my colleague Victor had mentioned earlier, this is where they use the most technologies in the U.S. militaries. And the highlights in this market is that we want to fully upgrade the previous HID generation that haven't got the interchangeable thumbsticks. And at the same time, in the span of 10 years, we also want to sell 700,000 new units in this market. The second one we want to focus on, once we have solidified the US military special forces market, is that we'll expand to North American militaries. And by this, one highlight I want to note is that we want to win 3 contracts with Canadian industry. And the final stage in the market and scale is that we want to expand. Once we have the product have evolved to the mature stage, we want to bring that to international forces. The product will then be a mature product that had been tested on the battlefield by the US military as well as the more North American military. Hence, it will be better to market it to international forces. And the highlight in this stage is that we want to bid on contract for these forces in the future, in the long term. And the 2 key marketing channels that we identify that will help target your audience is first that we'll go and prepare the proposals and bidding on government military contract. And the second one is we also want to bring as much exposure for revision about this new project as possible. That is why the second marketing channel would be focused on military trade show. Moving on to stage 3 of our implementation plan. Here, after the product has been proven and scalable in the military market, we want to bring it to the non-military market. We think there's a huge potential in the recreational, manufacturing, and aerospace. Just to give you a general idea of what I mean by recreational, manufacturing, aerospace, in recreational, there's tons of opportunity for you to come in and provide communication device for, let's say, paint bullets, shooting paint bullets or laser tag and stuff like that. At the same time, manufacturing and aerospace also have the needs and demands to do maintenance. And then this stage and then this market, your new HID device can come in, and with the capability to talk and communicate between human and drone, it will help with the manufacturing and aerospace maintenance factors. And now I'll pass on to my colleague to talk about source of funding.
Thank you, James. So as we have seen a great next generation HID product, now the main question arises here is that how are you going to fund this kind of project? So based on our analysis and based on your financial stability, we have came with these three options. One is the debt financing, which is always the cheapest option, but based on your profitability and your revenue from the last 5 years, which was around 60 million, it's really hard for you to take the cost for the project because of the heavy interest rate, which is approximately 15 to 21%. And then going IPO, I still believe that your organization would still require another 5 to 10 years to expansion throughout the different industry before going into an IPO. And also the last one, which is the most situated one currently, is the partnership program, where you could partner with some of the current industry leaders to develop the product and also the money funding you would require for. And now let's talk about the cost of the product. So this new generation HID product would cost approximately $1,150. And currently your highest expensive HID product is for $900. The reason we have a $200 increase in your price is because we are providing digital transmitter, also the swappable buttons, and also other different metallic material that would really help the product to be stable and go for longer, and as well as the software update. So basically, as you can see, metal material takes a little bit more expensive. That's the reason of higher cost. And now this is the revenue. Now is the revenue projection here. So our plan was for a 10-year plan, and based on that, we expect that the overall project cost could be about $1.7 billion. And some of the key things to notice is that the American US military has been growing at around 5,600 military professionals joining each year, and which is supposed to grow at 6% each year from now on. And the whole project ROI, return on investment, would be 25%. As you can see, in the year one, you don't really have break even or have any kind of profit. But from year two, when the product is in the market, you start getting the profit. And our pricing strategy is that we would like to keep the product price stable so that you could penetrate the market and also try some other customers as well and go to different markets as well.
We were able to identify two big risks. The first of all is lack of human and financial capital, and second is dispute with partnership entity. So to mitigation with the first one and the most important one, we say that we're going to do acquire external asset, but with strict standard management, so that the external asset, they have to have the standard from the revision. They have to make sure that the quality is good enough for revision. And now I would like to come to the recap. So by implementing our proposal, we want to upgrade to the thumbstick button to the human interface device we're having right now. So therefore, we can improve the human-machine communication and provide the next human interface device generation for the battlefields. Thank you for listening, and we open the floor for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Now we will be moving to the question and answer session. I may. My first question would be, why 10 years? Have you guys thought about maybe in 10 years there wouldn't be the need for the same design, or we would be looking for another design?
I can take this one. So the reason our implementation plan is spanned across 10 years is that we want to consider two presidential terms in the US. The first one after the new presidential terms at the end of the fourth year, then we're going to do reassessment of the plan to see what the market are and what our appetite for this type of product in the US market. And then on the second part of it, which is the remaining 6 years, we want to, like I mentioned earlier, we want to expand it to North American market and as well international. This is where we will bring in what we have learned in the previous one and expand it to it. So in conclusion, we think that 10 years is a feasible plan to apply this technology.
Yeah. Another small question about the 700,000 units that you'd like to sell, just to make sure I got that right. Is that over the 10 years? Is it just to the US?
That is in the span of 10 years.
10 years, okay. Okay. I saw also that you had in the costs slide 9% for other costs. Can you elaborate on these other costs?
I can take that question. So the other cost includes all kind of different recurring costs, such as like the transportation cost of the product or any kind of. So we want to make sure that certain amount of our other cost includes the transportation cost, and make sure, because we have to transfer to different locations throughout the whole United States. So we kept that specifically 9% to include those kind of costs.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. So just going back to what Josiane asked, like why the 700 units and the three, I think you mentioned 3 major accounts in Canada. Why did you set that goal for yourselves? What does that tie into?
Sorry, can you just rephrase the question?
Yeah, so for you had a goal of selling 700 units and then acquiring 3 major accounts. Was it in Canada or in North America?
So it's only in US. We are focusing on selling 700,000 units.
Right. So, but then I don't see the slide, so I don't necessarily know the slide that I'm referring to, but you had a goal there that said acquire 3 major accounts or 3 new customers.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Why?
Okay. So the thing is that, so basically our international, that was mostly to get the Canadian market, to enter the Canadian market. So based on our analysis, we found after US, the next target market is Canadian market, which are also heavily investing on defense strategy. So our goal was to win 3 contracts from in Canada. And if we could win through those 3, these are like based on our 4-year spans. After we do an assessment, we see that our product is good enough in US, and if US is buying it, we could market it based on to the in Canadian market that US is buying for our product. So then we hope to get at least 3 contracts.
Okay, and then on your slide that said in terms of marketing, you want to go to military trade shows, which I've now find out that there are. And proposals, is it you creating a proposal or just plugging into whatever RFP system there is out there and replying to the proposals?
I can take this question. So the way we do, when it comes to proposal, we'd like to develop the proposal and then bidding on all the opportunity that are out there that are in demand for these type of devices. And the key selling point here that we have that are distinguish your product from others' product is that it is upgradable. There's none on the market right now has an upgradable push to talk button. All of them limit on the human to human interface. However, like I mentioned, like that, it's next level, it's human to machine communication. That is what key selling point that we would like to drill upon when it comes to preparing this proposal.
Thank you.
Hi, had a few questions. Thank you for your presentation. First off, I wanted to know, can you elaborate on your testing procedures and quality control? Because I saw that you said on the timeline that you wanted to attribute some time to test, and I wanted to know how you're planning to do so.
Thank you for your question. So like in order to do our testing on this system, we're gonna divide it into different phases. First of all, we only gonna test it on a small number of the, let's say, only in one city or only in one military division. And then after that, when we get back the feedback from that first phase testing, we're gonna evolving our system and then bring it to larger scale of the testing.
Okay. And regarding the partnerships, we said that our methods of funding are going to be partnerships, right? How are we planning to achieve the buy-ins of our partners? As in, what is it in it for them that they're not going to another partnership with another company that could be possibly doing the same thing?
That's a great question, actually. Thank you for that. We after, based on our analysis, we specifically mentioned you guys to go with a partnership plan is that the product we have right now, it's not in the market. So this is a unique product which comes with a digital transmitter and also human to computer interface, which right now there's not many competitions available. So I believe you could market yourself to the coming partners that you are looking for a next generation HID product. So with that, you could market yourself and aim to get their attention and have a potential partnership with them.
So following up on that, while I can see that there is a advantage to being a first mover, I wanted to know, what are we using in terms of that's unique to Revision Military that is, well, that is unique to us that none of other people can copy. The reason why I asked that is because I think that after our 5 years, that's when we're going to be releasing the product. After 5 years, once the competitor sees our product, they can probably do the same thing as well. And so how do we go from there other than the upgradability? How are we innovating on top of that afterwards?
I can take the questions. So one way to increase the barriers of entry for other competitors to come in and copy with our product is that we can raise the standard of our product. At the same time, not only the standard of the product, but also the way that military contract work is expand throughout the years, coupled with our strong relationship that we have built over the past 10 to 15 years with the military, US military. We believe that your companies can continue to build and strengthen that relationship with the sector and use that as a leverage for your company and your product. Obviously, there are many products on the market, but the one that provide them the most and the one that they trust is Revision.
Cool. And one last question. In talking about expansion that you had talked about earlier, going to the Canadian market and afterwards internationally, how are we ensuring that we're expanding throughout, towards these different markets in a ethical and a sustainable way, such as ethical sourcing or maybe fair trade, for instance?
I can take this question. So the first aspect you asked is how are we going to sort it sustainable? And the way we develop this product is that we don't want to reinvent the wheel that the HID that Revision has had so far. Hence, that is why we only recommend you to change and upgrade the thumbstick button. So that is only half of the price of the entire HID. And that is how we tackle the sustainable problem. And the second one is that right now we are looking for more sustainable and also safety and durable materials that we'll use in the next long term to help with building the shell of the HID and also all the component material that comes after that. And that is something that we will look on in the near future.
Thank you.
I have some questions. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So one of my questions is, I think some of the other judges asked as well, but the first 5 years is no revenue. Is that correct? Like based on slide 16, you're doing R&D and testing for the first 5 years? You're just incurring costs. It was contradictory with the costing slide where it said like in year 2 that there was actually you're breaking even. So I'm a bit confused because slide 16 said up until year 5, the first 3 years was R&D, and then up until year 5 was testing, and then it was after that that everything, it looked to me like you were going to start selling. And then there was a slide later, I didn't write down the slide number, where it was showing all the revenue, and it was showing that there was revenue or that we were going to start making money by year 2. Did I misunderstand, or was that?
Yeah, actually, we are not thinking of getting the product in the market in year 5. We are actually doing it in year 2. So based on our implementation and plan, the expansion and the whole, the analysis takes out the whole 10-year plan. But we plan of getting profit from year 2 because once we create the product in the year 1, we directly supply it to the military people. And currently, there are almost 75,000 professionals available in US military. So based on that, we kind of priced our product and send it out to the market. And in year 2, we'll start getting our profit, actually. Yeah.
So in year 2, it's a pilot project because you haven't finished, like testing only starts in year 3.
I think
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Emma.
Sorry, I would like to clarify a little bit more on that. So another money will come from during our R&D process is that we believe in this specific segment, then there will be a lot of like military government, they want to funding us from the beginning so that they can have the advance in the wait list when they're purchasing this technology. Let's say the Europe government, they can see that this really good technology, they're gonna do the funding, or the North American, Canada, if they want to be the first one who get in hand our technology, then they're also gonna put out the funding that can help us. And that is where the money come from, and it's showing that it come from the year 2, even it's still under the process of R&D.
So it's actually they're investing, but they're not actually buying the product. Like they're just part of the, I guess, focus groups or test cases.
Yes, but like because we gonna have the R&D and the prototypes, so we actually have the first phase of the product that is promising for them, so they will be funding and invest on that.
Okay, so from a risk perspective, do we see any risks in that, like the contingencies? Like I know that you had a contingency strategy slide, which I think that was great, but do we see any risks in the fact that, well, I mean, it was mentioned that the timeline is so long. Some of the other judges mentioned that as well, but do you find that could be a risk in reality, that a competitor can come in and take the market away from us?
So we do consider that risk already, but on our risk that we want to mention, we want to focus more on the bigger risk. So the risk you mentioned is also one of the risks, but I think it's not as big as other risks that we already have mentioned. And James already addressed that we have our strength and the trust of the standard from revision, that in other quality and condition criteria that can help us to stand firmly on the market. Even other competitor can jump in later on.
Okay.
I hope my answer can address some of you.
Okay. In terms of it's the military, but which segment are we going after? All segments, or is there a specific segment of the military? Maybe I missed that as well, like regular forces, specialists, or special forces operators. And especially in the first 5 years where we're doing the pilots.
I can take this one. And so we decided to focus on 2 main segments for now. The first one was special forces, and the second was also the specialists. We decided to focus on these 2 segments for now due to the fact they have medium to high flexibility in their budget, and so they can accommodate the cost of the development of this project. And so those are the 2 main segments we're going to be focusing on initially.
Okay, so thank you. And our price point is higher than what was listed in the case facts, right? So we're selling at a much higher price.
Yes. I can take that question. So yes, we are the reason, as already mentioned during our presentation, that we are providing a better and innovative product with different technologies, just as data transmission. So our product not only does human-to-human interaction, which your older products were doing, the expensive one which we were selling, it was for $899. Even that wouldn't go from machine to human. So in our product, we will make sure that there's a interaction between human to machine. As you know, the new generation drones are coming in, new kind of technologies is coming in. So one of the judges asked, like, what would be a technological advancement? What are you going to think about that? So since if we have already our system available that can connect with human and machine, I think that would be a great opportunity and advantage for your company to take an advantage on and really grab the market. And also one more thing is that you could even patent the product as well. That's one more if you think more about computers coming in.
I'll go first on this one. Just generally, I'll let my colleagues give you detailed feedback, but I wanted to ask you first, did you feel like the time you had to prepare was enough?
I definitely think they're a part of our implementation plan that if we have more additional time, then we can flesh it out a lot more better for you when presented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the feeling that I got overall from your presentation. If I could, so I'm not going to go into the details, but as a team, if you in the future could look at the information that you're presenting and then maybe try to anticipate the type of questions that you may be asked that are not on the slides. The answer is not on the slide, but somebody might be asking. Maybe you would be a little bit better prepared that when that question gets asked, you give a more compelling or research answer so you don't get caught off guard, which was my general impression, that some of the questions that were asked were, the answers didn't come natural. So you had to scramble a little bit there, but just in the future, make sure that you have some other information in your back pocket, because there's always going to be a curveball, right? Or just think of how it can be better prepared. And just make sure that overall, it all gels here. Like you don't leave people confused. Like, is there here, what I know is a bit of a discrepancy between design, innovation, timeline, cost. It kind of doesn't all work together, and maybe think about that a little bit. Does it all go over the entire plan again and make sure if it's what you're saying is sustainable, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, thank you.
I can go next. Okay, guys, what I liked about your presentation is that you were thinking long term. So you were having a business vision. You were thinking about expansion. You were thinking about tapping into new markets over time. That was very good that you had that thought. And also what was good about the content of your presentation, you were thinking about where you're going to get funds. And you realized that internally you have limited resources. So you were thinking about engaging partners and bringing partners into the game, all those things. So that was very good. And also what was good about the design part is that you were thinking about, upgrading it and how easy it is to upgrade over time. So that those were valuable thoughts that you brought into your presentation. What I would wish to see, in addition to what you presented, is a clear problem statement in the beginning, clear, precise, problem statement for what the problem you're addressing. Also, it would have been beneficial to address sustainability, right? Because integrate that in your presentation. And also perhaps, and I will let other judges to comment about in the innovation aspect of it. So these are my comments. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I can go next. Thank you for your presentation. Good job on the overall presentation, of course, and the solution. I think the best part of your solution or your product is that it definitely does satisfy all the criteria. So a lot of our previous presenters' product or solution that they came up with didn't answer the upgradability part. And I think you did it very, very well in that sense. And being able to anticipate the upgradability and the modularity of adding things through the magnetic part is, I think, was a good idea. And I really like that as well. The only thing is I thought sometimes or multiple times throughout the presentation, I thought the solution had some contradicting points, with one of which Eva had mentioned during the Q&A as well. And another one, which I think was the joystick taking 5 years to release. As you know, these joysticks already exist in the recreational market, which you wanted to expand afterwards, right? So we're talking about joysticks for just simply gaming consoles. Something like that I don't think it would take 3 years to make it maybe more durable or make it stronger. So what I would have liked to see is this research time and this testing period taking less time, and therefore your ROI can be earlier, and therefore you can start expanding on innovating on these upgradability parts, right? So having that foundation at the bottom, I think, was solid. Having that little piece that says, hey, we can attach any part in the future that we want into this, making it a sustainable solution as well. But that's just the beginning. And then working on top of that, adding those innovative parts, right? Let's say you want to add a Wi-Fi communicator to a UAV that's, uses a new type of technology. Throw it on there. Those are the things that we wanted to see. Or maybe some kind of, I don't know, the joystick kind of gets outdated and then we move towards a touchpad controller. And so you can add a touchpad controller on there. But these are the things that I would have liked to see in terms of expandability when you said upgradability, and it would have gotten me more excited about the product. And I'm sure it would have gotten your partnerships as well more excited about seeing that there is an expansion for the future. And here's the little taste of it, right? Other than that, I think your presentation was solid in that sense. And the upgrading towards marketing and scaling was pretty interesting, and also seeing the non-military markets being incorporated was interesting as well. So kudos for that. But overall, awesome work, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give some feedback. I'll follow from that. So I agree, great presentation, and I really love the fact that you guys had an open architecture. You're from all the teams, we were looking for that, and you actually had that. So that, it was flexible and it would make, long-term sense that you can add and, plug and play and put more things in as technology changed. So that was wonderful. It was confusing as to my question, like the timeline with the costing and when the product was going to be released. And even what you just, articulated during the Q&A was that, the military was going to, in essence, be a partner. So I would have added them in the partnership pyramids, because if they're funding, it means they're partnering. So they're not actually buying products, and they're helping you test the product, and eventually they'll adopt it. So, they would have been in the partnering, and then that would have presented other types of the contingency strategies, other types of risks. So to me, the partnering is a big risk, because you never worked with a partner before necessarily at this scale. So, and especially if your customer is a partner, which is quite feasible. So it would twisted the presentation in a different way. So I find, and I believe it was Angela that said the integration, right? So that would change. There was some things that were a bit off on that. So that made it confusing. But overall, great job, and kudos to you guys doing this during the pandemic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just maybe conclude. It was a good, we can see the effort in it, especially in the business plan. We could see that you went through the case, you saw what was actually asked in the business plan. That was a plus or advantage. We can see the effort in there. However, we would have liked to see, like everyone said, a little more on the engineering side, a little more innovation, but that's also open for the future. Because it was more specifically targeting the business plan, that's why we found a little more gaps in it. Maybe if we saw the innovation, it would have equalized, in all aspects. I would have liked to see more on sustainability, at least a slide, at least the justifications that you gave in the questions and answers, that was very good, but we would have liked to see it in advance. So, but good luck and good job. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. We're Real Consulting. My name is Lauren Edwards, and today I'm joined by my colleagues, Tom, Nathaniel, and Rani. And we have worked to develop you at Revision Military, the next human interface device. Through our comprehensive analysis, as well as our additional planning and strategy that went into developing this, looking at the next slide, we're going to see an overview of our presentation today. Looking forwards, through our analysis, we determined that the special forces and the specialist departments will be the most benefited from our improved technology, leading to the final design of a digital human interface device that will be worn on the forearm. This allows for higher functional capabilities, as well as a digital readout and increased compatibility with other devices. This was then targeted at the group determined through our analysis to reach the outcomes of a greater share of the US military market, easier access to information, which leads to a better user experience for all of the military servants, as well as an increased NPV of $15 million. Next slide, please, Tom. This leads us to our analysis. When we broke the US military market down into segments, it was identified that there were 4 key departments, being the Marine Corps, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, who each had components within the regular forces, specialist, and specialist forces. Looking deeper at all of these components, the regular forces was the largest market. However, they were also quite price sensitive due to the lower budgeting requirements. And it was also determined that the users required lower complexity as well as connectivity. It was more expected that they would be using one radio and potentially a second device alongside that. However, they wouldn't require additional capabilities. Looking towards the specialist and specialist forces, though, both of them required specialized training, and having equipment to back up the training and provide additional support would be of greater use. They also did have increased budget constraints, which would mean that they would have the capability to take on more technology going forwards. Next slide, please. When looking at the current HID that they use, there was a lot of feedback from Revision Military that was provided when looking forwards. Some of the strengths of it was that it did have the option to combine very well with the existing material, as well as had the comfort and cabling, the 3 buttons, and the effective use. It had a very simple user experience that would be easily customized by the user as they went. However, the key limitations of the design were its size, the orientation, and the lack of additional controls, which a lot of people said that they would really appreciate having the use of. It is also an analog device, and so looking forwards into the future, it would be really good to consider different ways that people can interact with it. The pricing is also included on the screen, with the price being between $770 and $900 for the basic modules. Next slide. Using this feedback as well as the additional slides, we were able to have a variety of different design features that we considered, looking at how we could make it adaptive and upgradable, protective and enhancing, and comfortable and simple, as well as considering all the other features that are identified around the outside, looking for practicality, comfort, ergonomics, sustainability, as well as that analog digital display. Thanks, Tom. Multiple options were considered using these criteria before our final solution, looking at how we could add a joystick to the current HID design, looking at adding Bluetooth capabilities, as well as having that digital screen on your forearm. It was determined that whilst the first 2 would have some benefit to it, adding a joystick could impede the current use of the HID without adding benefit to majority of its users. While the Bluetooth capability looked good upon first analysis, as it does allow additional compatibility, it does also limit the usability for certain demographics and has greater chances of technological failure during what could be critical operations. Thanks, Tom. It was determined then that the increased cost would be worth the increased access and greater compatibility that would be had with a wearable HID device. Next slide. All of this leads us to the final design.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel, and I'll be talking about the final design. So the focus was on a user-centered design. And so we were trying to balance the functionality and ergonomics of the design. Now, in terms of functionality, the digital HID capability of needs the capability of communicating with additional technologies through a modular design. In terms of ergonomics, a non-intrusive and intuitive design. So the modular adapter allows various cable inputs to connect HID to their headsets and technologies such as UAV drones, remote controlled weapons. Now, power and data cable allows for reliable power source, and data cable allows for communication between third-party devices. So the interactive display will reflect natural light and is reinforced by acrylic. I will talk more about that in the next slide. And the buttons are 4 basic buttons, which allows users to interact with the interface. The buttons are just up, down, accept, and go back, as well as a ENGCOMM button. The strap is made of silicon, which allows the digital HID to be fastened to the user's wrist. Next slide, thanks, Tom. So as you can see, there are a few key design limitations that were considered, particularly in relation to the interactive digital display. So the LED, traditional digital displays are made with LEDs, traditional LEDs, and LEDs consume a lot of power. Light reflection can compromise sensitive missions, so in a critical situation, you wouldn't want this You will not want light reflecting off of you and compromising your position. Bright ambient light will also make LED displays difficult to see. For example, if you play on any day, it's very hard to see what's on the screen. So the solution to this problem is an e-ink canvas display. Now, this reflects natural light and has an option of a black backlight for dark ambient lights as well, and has a very natural feel, as you can see on the 3D CAD design. Next slide, please. So the dimensions and ergonomics of the device will allow for a convenient user experience. As you can see, this device isn't as big or bulky. It's only 6 millimeters thick and 5 centimeters wide, 100 meters long, and 100 centimeters long, sorry. This device is designed so they can fit on the user's wrist, and there's also a detachable feature where the user can detach the device and use it with both hands instead of one hand on the wrist. Next slide, please. So the detachable digital HID allows the user to effectively communicate with personnel and operate remote control technologies such as the UAV, weapons, and robots. As you can see, on the right, there's a little device, the modular input device. This allows connection to, say, a joystick that will then control the UAV drone. And then moving on.
So we're looking at positioning now, and we'll go to the next slide. Thank you, Tom. So as we've discussed, there's been a lot of different technical needs within each division of the United States military. We decided that we would focus in on the Army and Air Force due to their higher demand and bigger budgets. And then within them, we would like to look at the specialists and special forces. Again, adding on to what Lauren said, it's due to their roles requiring a lot more of them and their budget being able to allow for more implementations. Next slide, thanks, Tom. Yep, next slide. So, as I said, specialist and special force operators we're looking into. This gives us an approximate target market of 66,000 people, with this split between the majority in the Army with the smaller percentage in the Air Force. So we then considered their needs and requirements and their feedback from the previous HIDs to see what would be the best option for them. So they require specialist equipment and resources due to the demands of their job. They also are working in much higher difficulty situations, so they require more technology. And it's also very important that they meet the military requirements in terms of thickness, durability, etc. So the IX59 HID, which we've designed, meets all of these and provides these additional features and increased connectivity for users, which helps them keep safe and aware of their surroundings through the digital interface. Next slide, thanks, Tom. So it's a high quality device and we're targeting it at the specialist due to the high quality. It also means that there was a higher price point, but this was determined through the cost of materials and also to ensure profitability for our company. Will be a large market penetration due to the size of the military. And this is one of the most new and innovative designs. And this is something that not many people have seen or experienced so far. So they're at the cusp of this technology. And as all of this is being done, it's increasing the demand for more HIDs. Next slide. Thanks, Tom.
Cool, thanks. So this brings us to a bit of a financial analysis that we've undertaken through the briefing. As you can see, we had done an incremental approach to a sales strategy, and this allowed us to split the costs for Revision Military over a 5-year period. A 5-year period will allow Revision to not only test the, have a 2-year rollout period at the start to test the devices with a smaller group of military personnel, and then allowing for 3 year from the 3 to 5 year time frame to roll out to the rest of the market. As you can see, we've said we'd target 75% of the market segment. So when Rani talks that we've got approximately 66,000 total members within the specialists and special forces, This means we're going to target around 50,000 of them, or around 49 to be exact. With the sales strategy graph in the top right-hand corner there, the first year is obviously very small. As I mentioned, this is to target the initial rollout. So we'd say about 25% of our Air Force specialists and Army specialists is who will be our testing the new IX-59 HID unit. Furthermore, we've got the cost breakdown per unit of HID. These are based on estimated market values for LED screens can be bought for cheaper, but this will produce a durable screen that the military can use out in the field and not be worried about fragile screens breaking. We've also got a casing there for $150, again, based on market values of durable cases. We've got $350 for additional electronics. These include the microprocessors that need to run and compute for different GPS and digital signals, and then $450 per unit of development. This generates a total cost of $1,200. This could be done cheaper, but a conservative estimate, better to go for a higher value. Once we move on to how we will pay for all this, we've got $1,800 of a sale price, which is a 50% markup. As you can see from competitor pricing there, this puts us at the upper range of all of the current offers, but our device is innovative and offers capabilities that aren't seen in the original ones. We've also conducted a discounted cash flow analysis, and that's how we got to a net present value of $15 million. Just quickly, the revenue is the initial 25% of the special forces in first year, and that cost is then split in half to pay for the development over the first 2 years. Then in the third year, we've got another 50% of the specialist forces with 30% of the special forces, and then another 30% of just the special forces, and a final 15%. That will allow us to get our full 75% target.
As Tom said, we'll be rolling this out over 2 years, just so we have enough time to develop and prototype it. Next slide, thank you. So we also have expansion opportunities for the future, going into different industries such as mining, recreational activities, private sectors, private security, and technicians. Thanks, Tom.
Excellent. So overall, you can see that we have been able to, through an analysis, been able to develop a new HID for revision that will be sold to the US military forces. You saw the final design and who we're targeting it to, and we believe this will generate some great outcomes for revision military. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we will do the question and answer section.
I have a quick question. I really like that you identified other market verticals. What would be the applicability in some of the markets you've identified that are outside military?
Yeah, if we go back to that slide. So for things like technicians, we were discussing like telephone companies, things like that. When they're out in the field, they could wear these the HIDs on their wrist, and rather than having to carry around all these extra devices, they could quite simply just flip their wrist and have a look. Same with things like mining. When they're down underground, away from things, they can have it all just on them. And then we thought, not necessarily this device, but this technology could be incorporated slightly differently for things like recreational activities. So, you know, if you're going skiing or something like that, you could connect to a GPS and have that wearable on you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. It was really good. I'd like to ask about, if you can go back to the design a little, if you can go back to the slide with the design. I saw that it had, I think it was connected with a wire. Is that how it's going to be charged?
Yep. So that would be connected to the battery pack, and that's its power source.
Okay.
We've explored having a lithium-ion battery in the device itself, but that would require it to be recharged every time. Yeah.
So where would we put the wire? I'm just wondering about the wire, if it's going to be a problem for a soldier.
Yeah, of course. So this is one of the problems we've identified. And one of the solutions we came up with was that this wire would be inside the soldier's uniform. So it'd be running through, not quite inside his uniform, but woven within uniform. So it's non-intrusive and it's out of the way.
Okay. Are there any other limitations, risks? Have you identified other limitations or risks?
So the limitation of having an LCD battery is inside of it was a risk of the battery malfunctioning, and that could burn the soldier. So we kept that out. Another risk was the LED lights that they would emit light, and that could compromise sensitive missions or objectives. So we've opted with the natural light, the canvas display, and yeah.
Perfect.
I think just quickly too, another limitation that I mentioned was the, for especially soldiers who are going into harder battle scenes where they're got hand-to-hand combat, the device could become damaged. So this will need to be identified with trying to make it as durable as possible with that casing and the non-shatterproof glass that's rolled out. So.
Talking about durability, could you identify where you chose some different options in design or in the costs that render it more durable?
Yeah, so
sorry. I'll take that, Nathaniel. So in our costs down here, this broken up. These were just based on some estimates. So I was able to find a screen for around $70, and then from some additional research, Motorola has developed their Moto X, which had a shatterproof screen, and pretty much instead of it being glass, it was a plastic screen, so made it far more durable. And similarly with the casing, there's a lot of military grade casing for around $150 that is provides the cushioning and to dampen blows from, if you fall into a wall or whatnot might happen. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have some questions on the costing slide since you're there. Sorry, I think I cut off in. The case fact states there's resource constraints in terms of experts. Is that taken into consideration in the costing, like when you build your estimates? And then the whole testing, the fact that they, and training, like the fact that we would have to get new resources, we also have to train them so they could comply to our methodologies.
Yeah, that's a great question. So initially, that's why sort of in this slide, what I tried to outline was the ability to sort of do a pre-sale to the military. Obviously, with current connections, we believe this is extremely possible. And so that provides the initial revenue to be able to purchase these resources and be able to fund a training and that.
And just in terms of training, the design of the product is very intuitive. So anyone with sort of like a smart device will be able to navigate our device. And being a specialist device, the technicians would be able to navigate and operate.
Oh, so I asked about training in terms of the resources that we're going to hire to build the product, train them being trained since they're new and they don't know our revision methodology and all the regulations and the testing required. So that's what I meant, not the actual customer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read that. I'm sorry. Do you mind if I take that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. We did include that 2-year rollout time, allowing that conservative estimate just so that there would be plenty of time to make sure that the product is well tested, and would be able to make sure that the technicians who are creating the products are well trained, in order to make sure that all of the devices do use it, created and are able to be used as expected and to be able to get the most use out of it. So within that, in the money that is done in that pre-sale, it will be able to be used to help ensure that the products are well manufactured, and therefore it would be able to make sure that you can train the manufacturers as well to ensure that they have good use of the technology as well as the best materials that will be available for the task.
Okay, so the funding, so from what you said, the earlier question, like the earlier answer was that to get the upfront funding, if we don't have resources, we're going to try to get the military to fund it. Is that what I understood?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. That is correct. So you do like an initial sale with the military, and this obviously provides benefit to them if they're going to be purchasing bulk later down the track. They're not having as much upfront cost as well, and it then obviously serves a great benefit to Revision to get more funding upfront, so it's not out of pocket.
Is the product ready when they're buying it up front? Like you're doing it right away, so has it been fully tested and ready? And are we selling it at full price, or are we selling it like at a discount since they're going to be helping us test and further enhance it?
Yeah, so the product would be in a development stage in order to sale, but it would have to be a full price sale at that, according to these estimates that we've generated.
Do you see that as a risk?
Yeah, definitely could be a risk where we believe though that offering through, a great deal in terms of the innovation and the additional information that this kind of device provides to the soldiers, that the military will identify it as the future of warfare.
Okay.
For the safety of the soldiers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm interested in understanding on the modularity. So we said that we had this extra part of this device that allows us to connect to other things and control different various other things, right, in the future. How are we planning to ensure the innovation around this ecosystem?
Sure. So as you can see, that the modular adapter over there would be able to clip onto the soldier, and that modularity design allows for so when technological advances, having a modular design, you can easily just replace an object. For example, if you were to connect a joystick that would control a UAV, as joystick technology advances, you're able to get more and more sort of responsive. You're able to replace it without replacing the whole set.
Right. Sorry to cut in, Nathaniel. Are we opening this up to third-party companies so that they can innovate on top of this, or are we keeping this in-house and we're developing on top of it?
There could be some third-party collaboration. For example, we only specialize in the HID, but if we collaborate with a company that creates remote controlled weapons or robots, then we can collaborate and create adapters that can that are able to collaborate. Yeah.
Cool. And one last question regarding the overall project. What are our definition, or what is our definition of success? As in, what are our KPIs that we want to meet throughout the project to ensure that, to ensure the success of the release of our new HID?
I might start that one off. I think in terms of, the immediate performance indicator would be determined after the meeting with the military, Revision and the military, to ensure that that initial funding is locked down. And then once you go on from there, just making sure that the uptake is as expected. So with those percentages of the target market uptaking the product would be, yeah, two of the key performance indicators that we've identified at the moment.
I'd say another KPI would be hearing back from the soldiers and the people who are actually wearing it. They had a few issues in the past with the other HIDs, and that is why we've redesigned it. So hearing back from them, making sure that this is something that they find value in and find that it's worth it, and it is much better than their previous.
Awesome, thanks.
Do we have time for another question?
Yes, we do have. We still have 3 minutes left.
Okay, great. So in your expansion strategy, market strategy beyond military, how do you foresee you going forward with marketing to all these different industries who are not currently your clients? How you're planning to establish those relationships, and also that would require a significant marketing budget to bring the information to them and to gain them as customers. What would your long-term plan be to win these markets over?
Good question. So these would be considered over time. So looking beyond our current timeline for the project, looking at the next 2-year rollout for the military. Beyond that, you will have had, we've got the predicted NPV of $15 million in revenue from, in profit from this project. And so looking beyond that, after it has been tested in the field, it has been validated, you will have the benefit of the positive user experience that this that the HID will inspire. And then from there, being able to approach these different services using connections that might already be had, even if it's through a third party or someone else additionally. Otherwise, considering where the best investments would be going forwards and doing projections closer to the time when you would be approaching those markets.
Could you guys give us an idea of your competition? Who are you up against if, let's say, you approach these companies, these potential clients? Who would you be up against?
For these segments, was that?
Do you think the competitors you have for the military segment would be the same ones that operate in these industries as well?
I believe the competitors would be different. In the different industries. We didn't complete comprehensive analysis looking outside of the military market. However, it would be likely that there would be different competitors. However, there aren't any similar products operating within this sphere at the moment, but within the military. And so it would be likely to assume there aren't many competitors competing externally to the military at the moment in this sphere either. And so by expanding into these new markets, it would be possible to have that first mover advantage. If there aren't already such products, and to be able to become that mover within the market and be able to get a large segment if that is the case.
So if your product is original, will you be looking into patenting the product in order to have that edge over potential competitors?
That would be something that would be able to be considered down the line.
Definitely, yeah, because in the long term, that would give you a certain degree of protection.
Yeah, a patent would definitely need to be considered at the initial phase where some of those funds could be used to fund the patent for those 20 years or however long you secure the patent for.
Oh, volunteer. That was a really well-developed presentation. Good job. It was one of the most developed, let's say, of today. We'd like to tell you that there are some gaps, some little things, perhaps because of the lack of time that you had, that you might have missed. I'll mention the few that I remember from our discussion. A little bit on the wiring, that design, that's probably going to be a risk or a limitation in the actual field. So that could have been a little more developed. I'll maybe let another judge discuss the costs more, because it's less of my field.
I can go next. What I really liked about your presentation is that you clearly defined your target market. Yeah, you were very specific and showed good understanding of it. And also, it's good that you explained the limitations of the current solution so that it was clear to us how you're going to upgrade that, how you're going to make it better. And what I really liked is that you considered multiple options and evaluated pros and cons. Yeah, so you've shown some really good analysis there, that you didn't just pick the first solution you thought of, but you actually looked at the broader picture and made an informed choice, informed decision. So that was very good. And I also like that you, even though the target market you chose was narrow and provided a limited revenue potential, limited, right? In terms of revenue, because you have original technology, you thought about expanding it further. What I would like to see for you thinking as a business, as a company, think about try to size the revenue potential of all these different industries. That would be great, because from business perspective, you hold something original, you're developing technology, you want to maximize the return on your investment this way. That's it. I think it was an excellent presentation. I'm gonna repeat what other judges are saying, and I liked it a lot.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to go next. So I agree. I think it was well balanced, and overall we enjoyed your presentation. So some things missing. So I asked the question, right, on the costing. So one thing that was really important is also having like a risk mitigation plan. I'm going to go back to the costing, but a risk mitigation overall, like you're missing that slide. So I was just thinking of that right now. By having that slide, it will address some of the risks. So some of the risks are upfront when they're developing the product in a limited market, which is a good idea because you're still testing and you're piloting on an innovative product. There's risks that, you might not be able to get full price. The client may want it actually for free because, or they at a huge discount, or, because they're going to help you develop the product. So that's a risk, and you're going to have a funding model of some sort, upfront. And once you get that hump, then it's really interesting because you have an innovative product. So, but a risk mitigation strategy would also help a lot. But that integration between the costing and upfront and the revenue, where is it going to come from, or covering your costs for those first 2 years or 3 years until you have a viable product that can be sold at full price. Thank you for the presentation. Great.
Yeah, working off all the things that the judges have said, very good presentation. I really liked the overall flow, the presentation slides, the branding. I thought everything was on point in that end, and the overall cohesion between the teammates as well. I also want to emphasize on the strong analysis that you've had, which I think allowed you to, tie that into the recommendation, because a lot of our other teams that we've listened to earlier, while their analysis weren't as strong, that's what caused them to miss a mark on their products at the end. And so having this strong analysis really allowed you to target the right market, come up with the right product as well, and meet those requirements that we were asking for. In terms of the funding, I know we talk a lot about the funding. I would have liked to see something like method of funding, right? So at some point in the Q&A, I think you talked about partnering with the military and then giving it to them for them to test it. And so perhaps talking about method of funding, like a partnership, or even coming up with requirements on how we want to select these partners and getting their buy-ins for it would have been interesting for the funding. And not only for the funding, but also on the marketing side. I think I had asked Nathaniel about the third-party modular part. The modular part opening up to third parties. That would have been interesting to see, because you can partner up with companies that specialize on this different tools, such as a new receiver that connects to a UAV. Well, this company who wants to get on board on our ecosystem would like to have the specifications for it so that they can innovate on it. And when you have these two partnerships coming together, you're targeting an even wider audience, right? And in the end, you're bringing in more funding. So I would have liked to see that, but the Q&A was still overall very good. I can see that you guys all gave it a try to answer the KPI question, which I appreciate. I think that's it. I think it was the strongest team that we say we because we had a chat earlier, but we've seen today. If I had to give some kind of advice on the business side, if you can try to incorporate something I like to see sometimes in presentation is, what are we doing Monday, right? So like, what is the first thing we're going to be doing right after this presentation if we accept, we accept that we're going to be partnering with you, let's say. So a lot of executives like to see that because they want to know what they're going to be doing next immediately instead of seeing what they're going to be doing in the next months, right? So, but that's it. So overall, awesome job, and good luck for the rest. I think there's a finals coming up, right? So voila.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add, but just to echo, I really, really enjoy their presentations. Like, I like the way you incorporated the brand. The whole thing was flowing seamlessly, and I especially liked your presentation skills and the fact that you gave such good answers to judges' questions, and it were well thought out. I really, really enjoyed this one, and I especially enjoyed how deep you went into considering the design of your product and how well researched and how well you presented it. So really good job.